Hi everyone, today we'll be taking a look at a recently released figure from Spawn. This figure may have been released already like 10 years ago. So I like to also look back at some of the toys that have been released. And I think this figure is interesting because I think Todd or McFarlane Toys, they wanted to start a lineup. I think it was called like Color Tops or something, where they were trying to mix different lines into one line, which was the Color Tops, and sell it to retailers. And what's interesting about this figure is that this was one of the first Spawn figures released in a while. So, I mean, it created a lot of anticipation from Spawn fans. But as you can see, it also angers some people. I don't know if you can tell right away, what caused people to be angry. And I'll tell you one of the main things that, Spawn toys in the past have created controversy among collectors is they started as figures, but along the way they became, plastic statues. And what's crazy is like this figure, I think, unfortunately, I don't have the packaging, but McFarlane was, trying to sell it as a toy, but also as a, a display piece, sort of like the Banpresto figures, where like the DBC toys that you see on the shelf, where it's crazy that he claimed that this had points of articulation. One of them, being the neck, just moves left to right. And I think the most point of articulation that you notice as to consider an action figure is the elbow articulation. But other than that, is there isn't pretty much any other articulation. The waist articulation, but I mean, I don't know if you can call that articulation. And I don't know if this figure was available among old retailers. I remember seeing it across more on Toys R Us shelves than anything else. I don't know if it was available at Walmart or anything like that, but I do really do like these figures. I mean, I'm a fan of both some articulation figures, or if if they're just basically a display piece. But I really do like the sculpting. And I think this is one of the last figures too where McFarlane did add a wash to the cape, as you can see. So it has different tones of red, a black wash. So that's something that we rarely see on Spawn figures. And this is sort of like a mix of, comic Spawn and Commando Spawn. And they did come with a base, so pretty much like I think on that series of the Color Tops, they all of the figures came with a base. So yeah, pretty much this wasn't an action figure per se. It was just a display piece that if you were like a fan of Spawn and you wanted to get the characters, then this was a great piece to add to your collection and to compare with recent Spawn figures. So here it is, along with a Gunslinger Spawn. So he's a little bit shorter because he's standing on a stand. That's what I noticed too. That along the way, due to price increase and everything else, I think the Spawn figures in this collection were smaller. So you can see Todd had to make changes to the line because I don't even think this line is in production anymore. So I think it was because the success too of Marvel Legends too, that collectors were wanting that the sculpt along with the modern articulation. So especially now Todd with the DC line and testing the waters with the Kickstarter Spawn, which unfortunately I didn't get. It was an indication that the Spawn brand wasn't dead. It was I I'm a big believer that it's been Todd that it has mismanaged his own property. And I think this figure has become sort of a hard to get figure. I think part of it too was because one, as I mentioned before, it was available on Toys R Us. I think it's an exclusive, I know there was an exclusive one where it's the unmasked version, and two is because this line is not in production anymore, um, due to several reasons that I touched on it earlier in the video. But yeah, if you can get this figure, sometimes it goes, depending on the condition, if it's new, 60. I know it was going for 60, 70, but that was before the Kickstarter Spawn and, the recent Spawn figures that we have gotten. So yeah, if you're looking to get these figures, pretty much because you enjoy, you're a fan of Spawn, and pretty much is gonna stay in this pose. I mean, even with those 2 points of articulation in the elbow, it and and honestly, it does create a great presence in your collection. I just have this next to mine, some of my Batman figures too. And let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for watching.